Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grid Talk podcast here on Motorsport Magpie channel. Yes, we need to come up with a better entry than just hearing revving engines all the time, but we'll do it at some point when we actually
have some time,
have some viewers. Anyway, as always, you can see we have Wajid alongside us. How are you, Wajid?
I'm good, mate. How was your weekend? How was your bank holiday going?
Well, yeah, it's not too bad. It's not really doing anything. Kids playing up, as it does.
As you do. The benefits of parenthood.
Yeah, we won't. Yeah. Anyway, we've sent it to mother, to the grandmothers, as they call it. So, got rid of them for the day. Right. I need to be able to see what we're actually doing on Twitch today. Right. Everybody, we have some breaking news for you. I really need to get like a breaking news thing. Haas will be at Monza. They were in a long-running dispute with Ukulele, I want to say is how you pronounce it. But anyway, the Russian sponsor of Nikita Mazepin from a few years ago. They are now
Mazepin's dad
paid off, and it means that the team can now travel from Zandvoort the short distance. Well, I say short distance, pretty much a depth of Europe, but a short distance to Monza. So good news all around. And also means Mazepin won't be back for Monza in replacement for payment.
I mean, it's unfortunate. I was hoping one of the greatest prospects F1 I'd seen in the last couple of years was coming back on the grid, but unfortunately not.
Anyway, so yeah, Haas are back. There's no problems there, but we are here obviously to speak about the Dutch Grand Prix. Now, obviously, during that time, Haas had other things on my mind, but one team that definitely did not have anything on my mind was McLaren. So we'll start with them. And as we always say, if you're watching this review show and you haven't seen the Grand Prix, why you're watching a review show? And two, here comes the results. So there we go.
Ta-da!
As you can see along the bottom, Lando Norris winning from Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri in fourth, Sainz in fifth, Perez still outside the top five. We'll get into that in a bit longer. George Russell seventh.
Do we have
Lewis
to?
eighth.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do. Pierre, topics are quite similar as normal. Pierre Gasly ninth, Fernando Alonso rounded out point scores in 10th. Hulkenberg with brake issues throughout the weekend in 11th. Daniel Ricciardo recovered to 12th. And Lance Stroll 13th after his 5-second penalty for speeding in pit lane. It's the first time we've seen that for a while, but it is quite a quick entry. So first up, we will start with the simply lovely Lando Norris. Dominant all weekend. Car quick in the wet, quick in the dry. Popped it on pole by over 3/10, I think it was. It's just everything slotted into place apart from the start for little Lando.
Yeah, and to be honest, if I'm Oscar Piastri, I'm very disappointed. I wasn't next to my teammate, second on the grid, given how quick that McLaren was all weekend. Lando has to sort his starts out, to be perfectly honest, because it's cost him previously. Didn't cost him in Zandvoort because whatever upgrade they've brought into that, I want to keep on saying Mercedes because I'm so used to saying Mercedes.
Yeah.
The McLaren, we have a new rocket ship, and utterly dominant, utterly deserved. Second win of the season. Yes, should be more, whatever. But as soon as he got past Max, I don't think there's a single person that believed that Max Verstappen was going to catch Lando as soon as he got past him. Because Oscar was stuck behind the Mercedes of Russell, you knew Piastri wasn't going to catch Max. Obviously, the pit stops and all that afterwards. We'll get into all that. But Paul won the race, took the fastest lap on the last lap of the race, which I'm sure Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes were over the moon about as well.
Well, it's something that Lewis would have done, Max would have done. I don't think we've seen Charles do that. He normally just tries to bring it home, but it is a champion thing to do.
It's funny you say that because I was literally about to say this season like a crossroad point for Lando Norris, and these next sort of 9 races now, I think are gonna take a big step in defining who he is as a driver and who he is in Formula One for the foreseeable future. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, just seeing Stampy Kurt. Thank you for coming in. A great race by Lando. Yeah, and that's what we're just getting into. I mean, it was. No, I said this after Miami. I know I said we had a championship challenge on, but I also said that Lando Norris had changed. You know, he got more moany. Little mistakes he would complain about because he knew he had the car to take race wins. And then we've mentioned many times how there's been issues with them challenging for this title, whether it's pit strategy going wrong, things just going wrong, pace not being there at start stints, etc. Whereas here at Zandvoort, you know, this is the first, I know we've only had 2, but the first Lando Norris win where he's been utterly dominant. There's no questions about it. And not only utterly dominant, almost 23 seconds clear of the pack and able to just bang in lap times whenever he wanted, cruise around. You know, if McLaren had wanted to back Max into Charles Leclerc and take that risk, they could have done. That's how dominant that car was.
Because he'd have had the pace to jog on straight away after. Like there was never, even when Max was in the lead, there was never a point, I believe, in the race where you thought, Max is going to run away with this. All weekend, it's never felt like that. Ask Mr. Magpie what he thinks.
I will get onto that in a mo because that is something which I will definitely clear up. But this weekend we had many monkeys knocked off Lando's back. One, didn't need a safety car. Wasn't even a yellow flag this weekend in the race. Never mind anything else.
Which I believe is I think that's the first time since we come back to Zandvoort that's not the safety yellow
in
flag.
Zandvoort, yeah. I think it's about the second or third time we've ever had it in a race weekend. Yeah. But you know, a clean race, a decent race. Don't get me wrong. You know, there's some good races there. And in terms of McLaren, which we'll get onto Oscar soon enough, but in terms of Lando, he had the pace. He just drove away. It was as easy as it almost felt like a hybrid start at the start of a hybrid era. When Mercedes had a car and they just went, right, there's a safety car with 8 laps to go. Oh, look, we still won by 15 seconds. That's how it felt. And Will obviously coming in with his Lando support. We know Will is very much a McLaren sort of stronghold fanboy. Yeah,
fanboy. Why you been playing fanboy?
Yeah, but then there's so many things that made Lando so different this weekend. One, took pole by clear margin. You know, I don't think he's ever done that before. I think it's normally been quite close. Secondly, Lando overtook Max Verstappen on the circuit. I'll be honest, Max didn't really fight it, which I thought was very strange for his home Grand Prix. I know it seemed like foregone conclusion, but you'd think he'd give it a bit of a fight.
Yeah, but I think the overspeed of that McLaren was so much that if he'd started fighting or if he'd tried to fight, like I think this is the first time I can remember since the Red Bull has been the Red Bull that Max seemed sort of reside to the fact that he was not beating Lando yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's the first time since probably the Mercedes hybrid era that 2018, 2019, 2020 sort of period, especially the 2020 Mercedes. That's the first time where it's just like, well, this is pointless, really. It's been a long time since anyone has seen Max Verstappen go, well, this is pointless.
Yeah, and it's something we mentioned about 2021 that Max should have, maybe with Silverstone, just took the second place. But he needed that mental edge on Lewis, whereas he probably still feels he's got the mental edge on Lando. It is his home circuit. He's never been beaten there. He kind of went, okay, have that one. We'll live to fight another day. But will there be another day to fight? I mean, also with Lando, never, constantly putting in fastest laps without even a care in the world. I'll be honest, after his pit stop, I honestly thought the left front hadn't even gone on properly because he's pulled away so quickly from the gun.
Yeah.
It actually looked like it didn't go on properly. I was waiting for it to fall off.
And I also want to say we're going to Monza. Monza has been a very good track for McLaren in the last couple of years. It has not been a very good track for Red Bull historically. Yes, okay, cool. Under the turbo hybrid, they've been better towards this sort of new incarnation, but Monza is not a good track historically.
It really isn't for Red Bull.
Yeah, and for Ferrari as well, which we'll get into. They look like they've taken a nice little. They look like they've taken a nice little step forward as well. Mr. Magpie, who's been on his. We'll get into it now. Mr. Magpie, who is probably the only person in this sort of YouTube podcast F1 scene. Probably one of the only few people that said there's still a title race. 70 points. 70 points is the gap with 9 to go.
70 points with 9 to go. No sprint races put into that, where Lando actually doesn't need to worry about tyre wear, so he can push like hell. Hands down, that is a championship. And do I say it this time? For the first time since 2021, Max Verstappen is the underdog. Even with a 70-point lead right now, because we've talked about this before. Austria and Zandvoort, 2 circuits that Red Bull dominate at. And I mean, clear off into the distance and not be seen again. This is twice that McLaren have, realistically in Austria, Lando should have won the race. Max should have been second if we hadn't had the issues. It is a championship fight on. I don't, we'll obviously get on to Sergio in a little bit when we get to Red Bull, because obviously they've got to start looking at that. There's a little bit of a rumor going around the paddock about that, about how they're not actually needing to worry about the Constructors' Championship, even though Christian Horner will never admit it. But we'll get onto that rumor very, very shortly. But what it was with McLaren and Lando, he's come back from that summer break and gone, right, Hungary, I should have won the race. That gap should be 63. But McLaren wanted to turn things around. We've gone over that before. It's a bit dead water, but we know exactly why.
That gap should be smaller.
Agreed. But if we go off literally decisions by McLaren to swap people around, it should be 63. Spa, Oscar, if Lando qualified better, he would have been higher up. It was literally a no overtaking fest at Spa, which I'm still sitting here questioning how that even happened. But Oscar got third, could have won it.
Silverstone's the big mistake.
Silverstone could have won it as well. But what we're saying in the whole grand scheme of things is Lando could have been closer, and we're going to let's have a look at. I've
got it here. So we got
Italy, Monza.
So we go to Monza next week. Yes. And in 2 weeks' time, we go to Azerbaijan.
Okay, that's a Red Bull circuit.
Then a week after, we go to Singapore.
They struggled last year.
Yeah, where Lando could have won last year.
Yeah.
Then we got the winter break.
Yeah.
And then we head to Kota. Max is very good at Kota.
Max is good, but Lewis can be there, and high-speed corners for McLaren likes.
Then on the 27th, we head to Mexico.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about last year's. I think Red Bull were quite strong there, but then they had a dominant car, so it's quite hard.
Yeah, but Max has always been good in Mexico.
Yeah.
The high altitude, the Red Bull has always been good in Mexico.
So right now we're talking maybe 3-2 to McLaren.
So let's just go back. We call Italy for McLaren.
Italy, McLaren.
We call Azerbaijan for Red Bull.
Yes, that's one more. Singapore, I would say McLaren.
And then we go United, and then we go Kota, probably Max.
Yeah, I would say so, because we don't really know what Lando can really do around there in a quick car. Then at Mexico last year, McLaren were 5th, 33 seconds off the win.
Mexico's Max.
Yeah.
So I can only make that 3-2 Red Bull.
Yeah.
Brazil, I got that as 50-50.
Yeah, I think McLaren will be very quick round Brazil.
Vegas at this moment in time, I have as McLaren.
Yeah, for straight line speeds, definitely.
So I've now got that as 4-3 McLaren. Me personally. Qatar, I have that as McLaren at the moment.
Yeah.
And then Abu Dhabi, which
it's just whatever. It's the final Grand Prix of the season where there could be a championship.
So
you can't call it.
So you can't call it. So we here on the podcast have it scored as 5-3 in terms of the upcoming races for McLaren and Lando.
Yeah.
Over Max.
Just in reply to Stampy, any upgrades that were in the budget, you can bring all the way up to Abu Dhabi. No problem with upgrades. There isn't an upgrade period, shall we say.
Whether you do or not, obviously it depends on how much it starts going on about, next year's car and things like that.
Well, yeah, with Red Bull right now, from what we're hearing, they've brought more upgrades than McLaren. So what it is with McLaren is they had a very good base car. They just didn't unlock the potential of it really early on. So,
let's move to...
Well, we'll first, before you jump onto that, Oscar. I think it was Stampy that mentioned what happened to Oscar. Oscar kind of didn't really have the pace of Lando all weekend. He was thereabouts. He got into third. Ferrari, credit to Ferrari. Sorry, Italians, you got the strategy bang on. Pitted early, undercut, because the undercut was huge. And because I think Lando he only pitted one lap after Max, and he lost about 2 seconds of his lead. So, huge undercut here at Zandvoort. And, well, I say here, we're not obviously in Zandvoort. There's no sand dunes behind me.
Drunk Dutch people.
Yes, I did see a message from somebody who I follow on Instagram. No, it's not okay to do what you were doing, whoever you were out there. Anyway, we've got Oscar. It wasn't like Hungary. This is where Lando took a step forward. Oscar had the pace to finish second and just didn't take his chances when he had them. And by the time he caught Charles was just dropped. We discussed this on the preview, didn't we? About how I say Ferrari aren't in the championship hunt, but somebody like Oscar might be.
Is, yeah. Even when we were having the hypothetical conversation, both of us wrote out Ferrari. We said we were giving Lewis a stronger chance than Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, and that's crazy to think about given the points.
And personally, I still do.
Well, this is what I mean. Like, this is how much here in the preview. For those who missed the preview, if you do want to go back and listen to the sort of part about the championship, that's still relevant.
That's still relevant. Thumbnail, because I haven't put it on yet. Sorry, go on. Yeah, I just wanted to put context. So in terms of Oscar, just didn't have the pace. And realistically, McLaren needed him to charge through because he could have challenged Max, and for some reason he just didn't quite have the outright pace this weekend. But that's because I think, like I say, Lando come back from winter break and went, Oscar's beaten me the last 2 races. Technically, Hungary was a bit different. In Britain, should have done better. He's come back with a completely different mindset of, I need to win every race and I might have a chance here. And I think basically McLaren have said, if you prove to us to be the number 1 driver, we will back you. But for these first few races, Oscar's still got a chance to do whatever he wants to do. That's what I think's happened over winter. But moving on, first up, we will say, Wajid, you've asked me, Lando Norris, can he be Drivers' World Champion this year?
I still think the world title is over.
Okay, everybody, clip that. We'll have it right there. World title over. So just after Abu Dhabi, I make a nice little short, embarrassing. Mind you, I did that about Lewis to Ferrari.
I'm sure you did that with Lewis to Ferrari. What happened with that? I've still not got my apology for that, by the way.
Yeah, well, I don't need an apology. It was Spain. That was 8 months before.
Was I right, though?
Maybe. Anyway, exactly. Moving on.
Yeah.
Max, they could hope for. Max, he was pretty redundant after qualifying, but he wasn't going to win the race. And I think his mind was just making sure Oscar Piastri didn't beat him this weekend, and he was on that podium. I think that was the main aim for Max.
Yeah, that's where it sort of felt like. And this is sort of, I know. Sorry, so I brought up the comment by Stampy saying, Oscar's doing really well. Only that when you have that level of car,
you have to do well.
We have seen what people have done, aka Lewis Hamilton in his rookie year, with a car that's capable of winning races and winning championships. Both McLarens, McLarens, I was right this time. I keep on getting mixed up. Both McLarens have to sort out their start, because for me, even Oscar being off the pace, that's a fairly certain 1-2 they've thrown away as Anvil because of Oscar not getting the start, and because of him ending up behind Russell, then the pit stop strategies and everything like that. For me personally,
I would also say, in terms of Oscar, the hype that come behind Oscar before he started Formula One means he should be doing this.
Well, no, he should be doing better. In terms of the hype, he should be doing better.
Well, yeah, he should be. He should be winning the championship fight according to everybody else. But anyway, go on.
Max Verstappen, Red Bull have now got to the point where, because they have developed a car so much to focus on Max Verstappen's driving style, they now rely on Max Verstappen more than anything. Then I can sort of remember a team historically relying on a single driver. The car is totally focused to Max. It's totally fixed to his driving style. No one wants to have the conversation. Red Bull did not want to give Adrian Newey the credit. Adrian Newey has now stepped away, and this new aerodynamic team that wanted to take all the credit for all the work. Sorry, guys, it's not working.
I'm not. I mean, I think the problem for me with the Adrian Newey stepping away isn't the people behind it. I think they are very good drivers. I mean, they used to have is it Pompidou that went to McLaren or something like that. I can't quite remember his name, but he was Red Bull. He was just underneath Adrian Newey. But Adrian Newey designed the car. So when you've got a designer leaving and he's turning around and saying, well, this is the next part of the car we designed. This is the next part we improve because it carries on the same airflow. It's very hard for a team who probably don't have Adrian's head to go, and I don't mean being bald like mine, don't have Adrian's brain mind to go, right, this is how the car development works. This is where we're going to move on to and follow the same concept. So they could build a front wing that's completely different and doesn't work with that concept. So with Max, as Stampy's already pointed out, 30 points behind McLaren. Red Bull, forget again, the Constructors' Championship. And this is where one rumour, which I mentioned before, has come in. It's come in the last 24 hours. Stress it's a rumour. That Red Bull have been told by Mexican companies and a Mexican billionaire, I think we can think which one that is, that if they lose the Constructors' Championship, they will be compensated for keeping Sergio Perez on. This is the first time Wajid's heard this.
That is disgusting if that's true.
It is, but what's kind of the difference between that and saying, right, Sergio, you're up against a paid driver maybe or something like that?
I don't care.
Yeah, but let's say it's Lance Stroll versus Sergio Perez.
There is a difference between a driver going into the car and integrity of competition.
Agreed.
Right. Sergio being in the car as a paid driver, he is still competing with the people around him, etc., etc. And to be perfectly honest, given the level of talent in the other formulas, him being a paid driver versus not being an initially paid driver, he's established himself well enough. Just using the Sergio example.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a paid driver.
Neither of us are saying he's a paid driver. He started as a paid driver. I'm just using the paid driver as an example. I'm just using Sergio as an example in this situation because we're talking about, we're talking about Red Bull. Red Bull to be compensated, the sort of difference for losing the constructors' title because they keep a driver in, that is disgusting.
No, I get where you're coming from on it, but I don't see the difference between. Let's take Nikita Mazepin. I know it's a completely different world, but he came into Formula One with a huge backing, which took over the whole livery of Haas, not even anything else. And I'll explain why it makes sense in a minute, Stampy. The whole livery of Haas, and it's still brewed on until this weekend when we've had to pay the company back. But that situation, I mean, let's put it this way: if that billionaire came forward and went, I'll tell you what, Red Bull, I will pay you. Let's say the difference between first and second is £5 million. It's not, it's more than that, but say it's £5 million.
That's a lot more than
so the sponsor come along and went, right, I will pay you £5 million now to keep Sergio Perez in for the rest of the season. Now, is that any different to just paying them that at the end of the season? On a performance clause?
But one is based on the integrity of one is the integrity of competition. One is you're not replacing a driver. And let's be honest, if reports are true, Liberty Media have already done that by getting involved and saying, please don't replace Sergio. Please don't replace Sergio. We're going to Mexico.
The reason I'll say to Stampy why it makes sense is if you finish second in the Constructors' Championship, you get more wind tunnel time next season. So if you lose the Constructors' Championship as Red Bull, not only are you being compensated for money, heavily stressed. This is just a rumor I've seen and heard about, but I honestly don't think it's true. But it's something which we've got to report because it's out there. And people ask questions.
Unfortunately, given Red Bull's history, it could be.
I get that. But I do think McLaren Constructors' Championship, I think it's over. I do think it's over. In terms of Red Bull, in terms of Max, I actually think he's the underdog now in this championship with the pace of that car. But what I will say is this weekend, he was willing to just finish second at his home Grand Prix. That is a new play by Max Verstappen, which I don't think I can say we've ever seen before. So is it a change? I doubt it, but you just never know.
So I have a question.
You normally do.
So if it was Oscar Piastri in third, and not George Russell at the time, does Max fight harder?
No.
So you think he'd have let both McLarens just cruise up and pass him?
No, because if Oscar had been in George Russell's position, I think they were further enough ahead not to worry about it. Because George was really struggling, but Oscar wasn't exactly driving past people. So I just think Oscar just didn't have an outright pace, and probably a pace that Max could have fought against. Whereas he knew Lando didn't have pace. I mean, we've seen people on pole position by like a second before and not go on to win the race. But in recent times, if you're on pole by 2 or 3 tenths, you're probably going to go and win the race.
That's a fair assessment.
In terms of a second car, for me, yes, Sergio stepped up his qualifying. Yes, Q1, very close to going out, but he didn't. And he managed to pick it up. I get this argument about an extra set of tyres and the Lewis Hamilton block. Lewis wasn't going to just disappear, and Sergio certainly made the most out of it, shall we say? But it was a block. It was a block. It was a block. Spirit of the rules. It's a penalty. But I just don't get how Sergio, who has managed to get away with a lot of these over the years, not as bad, but a lot of these, one, moans about losing a set of tyres. It's like, Sergio, you were never going to be higher than 4th anyway. You weren't. Secondly, why do Red Bull keep putting their car out around Lewis Hamilton? They do it in practice. They do it in qualifying. And if they think Lewis has this stigma against them, which I'm not saying he doesn't, he might do for all we know.
He might do for all we know.
If he's got this stigma about him, why are you sticking your car out on qualifying laps around him? You've got a map. Work it out.
Yeah, but you're asking for a level of intelligence which I don't know.
Yeah, but we're also talking about the most intelligent person on that pit wall.
Yeah, but you're also talking about a team who love playing victim all the time.
I'm not sure that's 100% with Hannah. That was her name, Hannah.
It's just part of the Red Bull world.
It's part of the Red Bull world, yeah. But yeah, Sergio still comes home in 6th place. Lucky to be 6th. I think
very lucky to be 6th.
You know, Mercedes decided to pit George. I kind of get why they did that. They thought Carlos was going to cruise past anyway, so we'll give it a go. And when we get onto Mercedes, I'm sure that was the point that Wajid has made many times this season will come up again, considering the gap between George and Lewis, which we'll definitely get onto. But in terms of Perez, just zero, he's finished 6th again. He's finished 6th from the back of the grid this season. And now he's at Zandvoort. He's qualifying up there, and he's still finishing 6th.
In the second fastest car. Yeah, as Zandvoort, that was the outright second fastest car.
Yeah, I'd probably just, on outright pace, yeah. Over a stint, I'm not 100% sure. We've got to talk about this. This suspicion of a brake system. It's suddenly gone away. Now it's suddenly banned. And we've now got the car which was so pucker on its tyres. Beautiful on its tyres. We saw last season with Ferrari eating them alive and Red Bull not looking like they've just come out the garage. And now it's burning them up like something chronic. I mean, if it doesn't sniff, it does, doesn't it?
It does, but unfortunately, this is the world of Formula One because we'd all be amiss if we don't talk about the 2018 Ferrari engine.
Yeah.
2018 or 2019?
It was the year they actually went for the title, so it was the year Vettel ended up in the gravel, so it'd be 18, I think.
Yeah, because let's have a miss where all of a sudden the quickest car on the grid that year, all of a sudden the engine power disappeared, and all of a sudden they end up 3rd fastest. So it happens. If something has occurred, we're not going to hear anything about it because unfortunately, in terms of a sport, I feel F1 is more murky than boxing, which really says something.
Yeah.
But I do. But when we will get onto the Mercedes situation, I do have a question that is going to
We'll get
stem
onto that.
Yeah.
I will say on this situation, though, if you'd gone back years gone by, let's say the tyre situation with Michelin Bridgestone, quite similar, where they thought Michelin were running, like moulding the tyres in a different kind of way that wasn't, which was in the right sort of, not within the rules, but within the rules. Very strange.
It was a loophole.
The rules. Yeah, it was a loophole. We knew about it. It come out in the press. It was come out in the courts. It was thought about. It brought that toxic nature of arguments. But I will tell you now, since 2021, it honestly feels like they've just gone, you know what? Or Liberty Media, you know what? Envelope behind the door. Shut up about it. We'll move on.
Because there's no but there's no integrity in the sport after 2021. Unfortunately, there's no integrity in the sport left. I'm sorry. That stupid year keeps on coming up in this podcast. I do massively apologize, but
we have a right to talk about it today.
Yeah,
because in an interview to Dutch TV, I think it was, Max Verstappen was asked about Lewis and turned round and said, "Well, if I'm honest, Lewis is 8 times world champion because if the rules were stuck to, he would have been champion."
Yeah, so I read that.
It's amazing how he's come out with it 3 years later, isn't it?
I read that and I thought they were fake. I genuinely thought they were fake. I was like,
I'm not 100% sure whether it's fake or whatever, but it was mentioned in the. I think it was Brundle who mentioned it because he come out with a sort of sarcastic. Oh, some people call him the 8-time champion. You know, insinuating that it was Max who said it. So maybe. But anyway. Red Bull, quick, but not quite quick enough to catch McLaren. Perez meant to be in the car till the end of the year.
He will be in the car.
Like he's doing.
He will be in the car till the end of the year.
Yeah, if he performs like he did in Zandvoort, I don't see an issue. If he performs,
I do. Wait. There's
an issue. But what I mean is, in terms of Red Bull's mind. If he's fighting in the top 6, that's okay because they don't have the quickest car. And if they had the quickest car, they'll be Constructors' champions anyway. In terms of Sergio, as long as he's not going out in Q1 and being out-qualified by Ricciardo and Yuki and then ending up down the field, I think there's enough of a point to go, yeah, we're okay with this.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, with Audi coming in, and we might want to interview Audi at some point. I'm not going to mention diesel VWs. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Sergio shouldn't be finishing there. But I think Red Bull will be pretty satisfied as long as he's fighting in the top 6.
Well, they're going to lose the Constructors' title, aren't they?
Well, it's all right. There's a millionaire going to pay. Anyway. Right. We will move on. As you can see, the Drivers' Championship is now coming on. We'll move on to Mercedes because Mercedes looked like they're there this weekend. And then Lewis had a bad qualifying. And then the race, I'm going to bring it up straight away. You've said it before. Lewis could start wherever he likes on the grid. He will always be within 5 seconds of George Russell by the end of a race.
Told you. The man is, unfortunately, the man is quicker than him. Like, I don't. People don't want to talk about this, but I believe Mercedes have a bit of a driver issue next year with Russell and Antonelli.
Which we can pretty much confirm is going to be confirmed at Italy, which we all probably knew.
Yeah. Because Lewis Hamilton, even to this day, can still extract things from a car, which 95% of other racers on the grid cannot. Am I a Lewis fan? Yeah, cool. That's fine. But I mean, at one point in the race, he was still in 13th. George Russell was 3rd. How would you both have two pits? How do you both have two pit stops and end up within 4 seconds of each other?
I'll be honest, like it felt like George had absolutely no pace whatsoever this weekend. I mean, even on soft tyres, yes, he didn't have brand new soft tyres, but he was a tenth slower than Lewis's fastest lap. It honestly feels like maybe since Spa was an outlier. You know, let's put it this way: he went on to a completely different strategy. Through pure frustration, but he wasn't getting anywhere. It was right. Hail Mary, let's try it. That was it.
No, let's call a spade a spade. Since the email.
Yeah, but in Silverstone, he could have won. He was there.
But I don't think he would have, though.
He probably wouldn't have done the way the race turned out. But George was there.
Yeah,
he was leading the race.
No, Dave, I'm just going to cut you right there. Since the email.
I know. I've mentioned the email to many different people, and some people actually turn around and go, "What email?" But which is pretty much madness.
So, there was the question I want to bring up now, since we're talking about first drivers, second drivers, and I did have it in the banner notes before you changed the notes to be a lot more quirky than mine was, so I'll leave that to you from the future.
Oh, I didn't see that one. I didn't see one of change, but anyway, carry on.
Is it now second driver season? Do the front four teams take away Max, obviously? Do Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes now need to decide who their number one driver is for the 9 remaining Grand Prix?
Oh, hands down. I think the only team that don't have to is Ferrari, because I've said it again, and it happened this weekend. Yes, absolutely amazing podium by Charles. Got to say it, and we will get on to Ferrari. But Red Bull, obviously going to back Max Verstappen. Obviously. McLaren, the gap is 46 points now.
It's basically 2 race wins.
It's basically 2 race wins, you know, barring fastest laps and stuff. I think if Oscar goes to Monza and isn't 1-2 with McLaren, you know, Oscar comes out with all guns firing, then he can still probably mathematically put himself in a fight. But realistically, McLaren need to back Lando. This weekend proves it. I think that's where Lando did it this weekend. He come in and went, if I can prove this weekend you back me, then we'll get the backing. I've said before, Mercedes have to back Lewis Hamilton because the gap is now 32 points, so it's even more than a race win. Lewis just needs to sort out this qualifying, whatever happens. I mean, we're talking about one of the best qualifiers in the history of Formula One. You know, he used to be able to pull out a lap like something stunning. There's something not quite right there.
It was an awful qualifying. Like, let's call a spade a spade. It was a truly... And bear in mind, that came out of absolutely nowhere, given his relative pace all week until that point. And even in Q1, he looked comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm like I said, is it time? Do all the team? You are the team principal of all 4 teams.
The only team I don't back right now, the only team that doesn't need to worry about who's in front and who's behind is Ferrari. And the reason being is that they're just not there. Ferrari don't have an outright pace to say we must back this driver. Now, don't get me wrong. Charles is thereabouts. I mean, what is he? He's now 103 off Max. But let's be honest. Take away McLaren, take away Red Bull. They have bad races that don't get in there. Who gets in there? It's Mercedes. It's not Ferrari. Ferrari are not the one. Maybe Stampy. Lewis is still replacing Carlos. Nothing has changed there. But in terms of the Ferrari, I've said it all along. Lewis, if he was in that Ferrari this year, he would be extracting just that little bit more. And I think he would extract that little bit more in Carlos's seat out of Charles Leclerc as well. So do I think that Ferrari is a championship winning Ferrari? No, but it's consistent enough to be up there more than it is. And it was mega quick in Monaco. We said it was probably built for that to get the win. I expect them to look pretty decent this weekend at Monza because 1, it's in Italy. 2, it's Ferrari's home race. And 3, look how he did against Piastri in the straight line at Zandvoort. Piastri very quick in the middle sector, but down that main straight, even with DRS,
couldn't touch him.
That Ferrari is now designed, we said it a few races ago, for Monza in mind. They've already got a package that they can take to Singapore because they won in Monaco. And we know the Ferrari can go well in Singapore. It won there last year. So I think we're definitely looking, going back to Wajid's question, it is time to go. We know our number 1s and number 2s, but we do know it's quite not going to work with Mercedes on that because they probably think we're out of it now. 104. I can't remember where I saw it. I saw this morning that there's a tweet where everybody's worked out the average points. I think Lewis needs about 14 points a race over Max Verstappen to be anywhere close or something. So it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get anywhere near. I can't quite remember the average. If you want to do your own maths, it's 141 divided by 9. So it's back, just 13, 12 points a race. It's going to be very difficult for him to do that. Alonso is the last driver who can actually win the championship now. So anybody below, anybody who had their money on Lance Stroll or Yuki Tsunoda putting on a championship charge, or even Logan Sargent, I'm afraid you're disappointed. It's not going to happen this season. It can't mathematically.
Not this year. Maybe next year, though.
I always say this. It's like when we do an endurance race on iRacing, we always get to the point where you're 5 laps down and there's 6 to go. It's like, well, officially we cannot win the race now. But I'm not always 5 laps down. Or not my fault anyway. Anyway, going back to it, number 2 drivers have to be decided now. I think Mercedes really should, but they won't because, well,
one's leaving the other ones.
Yeah, they've looked at Kimi Antonelli now. He will be in the car at Monza for the FP1 session. 15.7. Thank you, Stanton. So it's taking 15 points out of Max Verstappen per race. It ain't going to happen, is it? Let's be honest. If Lewis has had a good Zandvoort and maybe won the race or come second, I would be saying he's in the championship fight. He's not now. Mercedes are not in it. They're not in the constructors' fight. They're nearly 100 points behind Ferrari. Never mind anyone else. And I think we can pretty much say the constructors is sealed to McLaren. In my view, I think it's pretty much sealed.
I think Red Bull going to finish 3rd in the constructors.
I don't know about that because Ferrari don't eat into it as much as we think. Where is it 64 at the moment? So
I think Sergio's the worst driver out of all 8 drivers.
Agreed.
And I think Carlos Sainz chipping away at 4th and 5th will eventually chip away into the 1. 2 drivers eventually beat 1.
Obviously, we will mention this before we move on from Mercedes. Kimi Antonelli, FP1 at Monza, looks like in place of Lewis Hamilton. Oh, well, it's not like Lewis doesn't know how to race around Monza. What's your thoughts, Kimi? Obviously, it's the worst case rumor in Formula One.
Just make the announcement. If he's as good, Kimi Antonelli has now got to the point where he has Oscar Piastri level hype. He hasn't
even won us half as many things.
He has to jump in that car and he has to start winning. He needs to be on pole at, I believe. Are we in Australia? Yeah, he has to be in pole in Australia or around pole position in Australia.
Yeah. Speaking of Aussies, we'll get onto another Aussie joining the grid in Formula One. And actually, there's a few changes at the team. We'll call them Alpine for now. Flavio has said they're not for sale. Yeah. Flavio's never told a lie in his life. Anyway,
that's the most honest man in F1.
Okay. Jack Doohan will be joining Pierre Gasly at Alpine. But first, time I've seen Alpine actually use the driver academy.
I'll be honest. I
Actually
thought Jack Doohan was still part of the Red Bull driver academy. So
no, he was previously. But Red Bull actually have signed a new junior over in karts. He's in the Euro Miami series at the moment. Fionn McLaughlin, so Irish driver who is very handy. I will tell you in a go-kart. Just missed out on the championship due to a puncture this weekend in where was he? Genk in Belgium. So congratulations to Fionn for signing for Red Bull. Unfortunate for you, Fionn, you've signed for Red Bull. Who knows what's going to happen to your career now? You could take off, or you could be not Max Verstappen because he wasn't part of a junior program. You could be Sebastian Vettel, or
Yuri Vips.
Yuri Vips. I don't think he'll be Yuri Vips.
You never know.
He's a very nice chap.
So was Yuri Vips apparently.
But Alpine celebrate a couple of things they celebrated. They got a very good drive by Pierre Gasly this weekend. Seemed to love the outside Latin around Tarzan, even though it was just for defensive purposes at every point going. He managed, what was it, 9th in the end for Gasly? Yes, it was. With a very late pit stop from mediums. They celebrated Oliver Oakes taking charge as team manager. Very good team manager. We've just been talking about Red Bull Driver Academy. Oliver Oakes was part of Red Bull Driver Academy very early on in his career, especially in go-karts. So, Stampy, thank you for popping in, and hopefully you'll be able to catch the rest of it. Red Bull Driver Academy deliver half the talent of the grid, but Red Bull still hiring from outside because of the toxic pod. The Red Bull Driver Academy is a difficult one, and we probably need to do a video on this itself.
That's a whole video by itself
because there's so many names in there that have been part of Red Bull Driver Academy. But I said this to somebody earlier, except for Vettel, the Red Bull Driver Academy never seems to sign like the best. Who's coming in next? You know, Max was signed with like 2 months to his F1 deal. That's not been in the F1 Driver Academy. I know they claim it, but it's not. But if you look at Red Bull Academy, there's so many names there who could have raced and could have been good enough, including Ollie Oakes in go-karts. He was brilliant. Look at Albon. He's been signed 3 times by Red Bull, I think, at least. It's an academy that needs its own little video about it. But yes, Alpine signing Ollie Oakes, signing Jack Doohan to come in, formerly of Red Bull Academy, as Wajid said, and now Alpine Academy. He sat out this year from racing to purposely get this seat. What do you feel about that decision, Wajid?
I've been very critical on the upcoming drivers in F2 and things like that. I don't feel the talent pool is good enough. I don't think Jack. I mean, he's good, but I don't know. I feel some type of way when there are former F2 champions that can't get a drive on the grid.
Yeah, for me with Jack, I think it's a good signing. He's very, obviously the name helps, but if you look at his junior career, it hasn't took off because a lot of the time he finished 3rd in F2, but his first half of the season was a stinker when he was in F2 for that 3rd place, and then he had a rocket of a second half. So personally, I think there wasn't a lot of other choice for that. There wasn't a standout person to go. I think if Victor Martins, for example, had an absolutely epic F2 season, maybe, but he's dropped off the radar completely.
Why do you think, maybe I'm extra critical, but why do you think that the current F2 crop or the current junior crop either can't break through the barrier, aren't good enough to break the barrier, in my opinion, or the hype they come with just does not translate in F1?
Honestly, I think the last person we had was Piastri. Obviously, Norris took a few years because he wasn't into the best cars. I think it's a little bit harsh because I think too many people look at F2 and go, right, we must have 3 or 4 from F2 coming through every season, and we must have this. And it's like, well, no, let's take the F2 champions over the last few years. Last year, Teo Pourchaire, let's be honest, he came into the sport when he was 19 into like F3. He didn't win the F3 championship. He took years to win the F2 championship, even though he was with ART all that time. It's not like he was with somebody substandard. ART is one of the best.
Sorry, I was going to say, for context, ART are like consistently up there in F2
They're
standards.
like Ferrari. If they're having a bad season, they'll be 3rd or 4th. You know, they're never right at the back. You know, last year we had 2022 we had Drugovic, Pourchaire, Lawson, Sargent. Now Sargent come through. He was in the Williams Academy, made sense, and he was on one hell of a run in F2 at the time. Lawson didn't quite get in there. Maybe a backlog of Red Bull drivers, but then he's just kind of proved himself. 2021 Piastri, yeah, that's fine. Schwartzman, who did do free practice 1 for Sauber this weekend, might be a good shout for a 1-year deal at Sauber yet. Guan Yu Zhou, Dan Tipton, who obviously went off to Formula E, he was never going to make it just because his reputation, which is unfortunate because he's very quick. Vips, obviously we know what happened there. Duravala, it's just, there's nothing there that stands out apart from Oscar and Schwartzman. You go to 2020, I think a lot of people got scarred by, was it 2020? I want to say it was 2020. No, it wasn't. It was 2017. No, it probably was 2016 when Giovinazzi drove, and he drove for Prema. I can't remember which seat. I'm sure it was 2016. Giovinazzi was second in the championship. Looked an absolute peach of a driver in F2. First year, I think that would have made Gasly champion, I want to say. I think he won both races. One from the back of the grid in Baku. You know, nobody ever does the double in Baku. But he did that. And then he come to Formula 1 and he just went, I think a lot of people got scarred by that. The Italian Jesus.
The Italian Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Look, we'll see with Alpine. It's a good result. It's progress. I mean, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I think Martin got it right. Isn't it good to see Alpine challenging for points, which they have been since about Monaco, when the start of the season was pretty much like McLaren did a couple of years ago. Dead last, no pace, nothing in the car. I mean, to be honest, the design of the car doesn't even look quick. And they always say if it looks quick, it is quick.
It goes quick, yeah.
Yeah. Apart from the zero side pod car, which, as Alex Albon said in the Spot the Difference on the F1 website, the mistake in this picture is a zero concept car.
Slow but steady.
Yeah, Ferrari, just no outright pace, but still getting a podium. I mean, you've got to admit it. Put Lewis Hamilton in that car next year.
We'll title
there's something there. I'm not sure we'll
fight.
title fight, but we're certainly going to be getting results.
I don't know. I just the story seems written. Number 8, official number 8 in the red.
Yeah, number 9. Yeah, well, we'll see about Ferrari, but I think great result by Leclerc. Sainz, slow but steady. Could have possibly been a bit higher if he hadn't got stuck with George, but you know, things happen. Realistically, going back with the rest of it, you know, we think Kimi's going to be announced this weekend for Mercedes. Yep. We've got Jack Doohan in the last seat at Alpine, so we've only got that seat at Aldi left. there's conflicting things. One person says yes, 2 German drivers in Audi.
Oh no, we've got the other RBC as well, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we pretty much know that's going to be Lawson and Ricardo, don't we? Yeah,
Well,
it's going to be one of the two.
I'm just from an official standpoint.
From an official standpoint, Max Verstappen hasn't signed for next year yet. Audi, Sauber, things aren't quite going to plan. You know, we got Nico Hulkenberg, but didn't get Carlos Sainz. I know there's a rumor of loaning Lawson out, but I just don't see how that's going to help Audi. Because if you're going to take a loanee, they're going to take him back. This should be getting somebody into the seat who could be there in 2026.
Yeah.
So let's throw a few names out there very quickly in terms of Sauber. You've got Bottas. But is he being a seat hogger?
Probably.
Joe?
Probably. Because Bottas looks like someone who doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, but he's still beating Joe, who seems to have just like switched up.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe's the other option, obviously, if you want to.
Everyone knows Guan Yu is a paid driver. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
He's done well, but this season it's been.
You are getting beaten by someone who does not care.
Yeah, but previous seasons he's done well.
You are only judged. Goodwill is only there if you win races and world championships. That's why so many people gave. That's why so many people gave Danny Rick the. Well, he's a former Grand Prix winner.
Yeah,
he's a former. It's the same we've had with Gasly and Ocon. Well, they've both won Grand Prix. You can see the speed is there. What has to get the man got celebrated for finishing 14th in China? For goodness' sake.
Yes, I know. This season he's not done well, but previous seasons
he doesn't deserve. Okay, does he deserve?
He
does he deserve? Does he deserve another season next season?
No, but exactly. I'm just saying. I think he's done. I think considering the background he came in with, he's done okay.
He came in as a paid driver to hit the Chinese market. I feel like sometimes I'm a lot harsher and a lot more ruthless than you are.
Yeah, you are. So, if we're not taking them two. Let's go through a few others. Liam Lawson. Could you see him in the Sauber?
No, because I think he's in the RBC.
Okay. Mick Schumacher.
It's so funny because I was going to say I can see Mick Schumacher in that seat.
Yeah, I can see it, but I do know that there's rumours going around. Obviously, I've said they're both sides of these rumours, that they want 2 German drivers, but they don't want 2 German drivers. That would go towards German driver route. Going on the German driver route, Seb Vettel.
No, I don't see Seb coming back.
I think if Sauber were higher up, there's a chance.
I think Seb comes back in a driver consultant role if he's ever to come back to the sport.
Okay. Now let's throw some outsiders that have been linked. Bortoletto.
Nope.
He's currently second in F2.
Nope.
It's a bit weird, that one, because he's had McLaren on his rear wing for God knows how much of the season.
Yeah.
Maloney is the junior.
Nope.
Okay. Schwartzman.
Nope.
Ian voted FP1.
Okay. And isn't he like 26 or something?
Possibly, but that's not that old.
I mean, it is in full F1 terms, though, isn't it?
It's as if you're putting. It's not if you're putting him alongside Nico Hulkenberg, who's about 64.
Yeah, but Nico Hulkenberg is the only driver off Fraud Watch that have proven me categorically wrong. Everyone else on there, I'm still batting at 90%.
And now let's go like completely out the way. So Callum Ilott, been linked with the team very much so before, but seems to be linked with Prema at the moment.
He seems to be IndyCar. I think that's, especially given he's had a stint in IndyCar, I think that one's more likely.
Teo Porcher. I know he's looking for drives over in Indy, but he's got the links.
I think with the totally outside links, I think unless they get a move into F1 in the first year or two, I think once they make that transition to IndyCar and knowing that on a given day, on a given day, it really doesn't matter what car you're in IndyCar because it's so the pack is so tightly spread. I think the ability for the guys to go over there, and especially on the street circuits, the ovals, it takes some adjustment. But generally, what you see is the street circuits or the normal circuits, however you want to call it. You see the guys from the European circuit always rise to the top as soon as they go into those sort of tracks. And I feel like for the likes of Eilert, Schwartzman, Grosjean, who is enjoying a renaissance there, because he seems to be really enjoying his time.
Not sure on his rejoin yet last night, but yeah.
Yeah, but he seems to be really enjoying his time at IndyCar. They like the ability of, well, we can be in a private team and still win. So I think with Eilert and Schwartzman, I think once they move to IndyCar, unless a McLaren, a Mercedes, a Ferrari, a Red Bull are knocking your door, I don't think you're coming back.
The rumor, just for people who don't know, with Proma is that it will be Eilert and Schwartzman over in IndyCar, which is a bit of a surprise. I thought Schwartzman had more WEC sort of background coming towards him, but if he wants to try single seaters again, fair enough. I don't really see many other names spotted.
I think it'll be interesting to see. We promise we will. We did speak about it, but we will make a video on our sort of predicted lineups for the 25-26 season.
I will say one thing before we go any further, though. It is the only seat left. If you're Sauber, are you signing a driver in eyes of 2026? Because obviously you don't know what Nico's going to end up doing because he is a bit older.
Excuse me.
Or do you sign a one-year driver just to get through this season?
You sign a driver with the eyes of 2026, which is for me why I'm more inclined that they'll sign Michael Schumacher because the Schumacher name with a German brand Germany mix. Sorry, I did say Schumacher.
That would be a comeback and a half.
Did I say Michael? I said.
Sorry,
my apologies. Mick Schumacher.
What a comeback that would be.
Well,
the meanwhile. Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, in the meanwhile, on to our favourite time.
I do. Right. I will get the results up, and then you can tell me what's right. Qualifying we'll start with.
So we'll go with you first. You had...
So fifth place was Sergio Perez.
You had George Russell. I'll wait for mine to ticker across because we'll go through your qualifying. So
go on.
Fourth, you had Charlie Leclerc.
Okay. Yeah, it was George.
Third, you had Oscar Piastri. Second, you had Lando Norris. And first, you had Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I was missing a lot 4 times.
For myself, fifth, I had Lewis.
Yeah.
Fourth, I had Leclerc.
It's going well.
Third, I had Piastri.
Oh, 1-1.
Second, I had Verstappen.
Oh, 2-1.
And first, I had Lando Norris.
Hey, 3-1 up.
So that's not bad for me.
Could this be the first one you win this season?
It's been a while. Probably not, because we're about to get into my race results.
Okay, so for those who didn't know, obviously race results, fifth was Seitz, fourth was Piastri, third was Leclerc, second was Verstappen, and first was Lando Norris.
Cool. So in fifth, I had Leclerc. Fourth, I had Verstappen. In third, I had Piastri. In second, I had Norris. And in first, I had Hamilton.
So I've got to scroll down to find Lewis on results. And myself.
I mean, it's not like you did much better because you had, at least I had 4 drivers in the top 5. You decided to stick George Russell in fifth. You had Piastri in fourth. You had Verstappen third.
Well, for some reason, I had Verstappen and Leclerc in third.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You had...
No, Leclerc was third. I had Leclerc.
Sorry.
I didn't. I had Max.
Yeah. You had Verstappen third. You had Hamilton second, and you had Norris first.
Well, I have the Norris first one.
So that gives me...
I'll have half a point for Leclerc because I put 2 people in third, apparently.
So that gives me my first win of the season?
Pretty much. I think you may have took a different one along the way, but so we've got the championship there. We're obviously going to wrap this up very, very soon. I'm just making sure that nothing new has come in just while we're.
This is record time for us for a podcast. We're as efficient today.
Yeah, we obviously have Britori says they're not for sale. Williams boss surprised rivals didn't want. Oh, that's an old one. Let's go to Autosport. Let's make sure. Something has been going wrong with the Red Bull car, says Verstappen. Shocker. And Haas, heading to Monza right now after they've sort of a $9 million disagreement. Right. Yeah, that is actually it. As you can see from the championship, I would like to know from everybody at home. Obviously, you have Team Me, who says there's a championship on and Lando is in a really strong position to do it. Or you've got Team Wajid, who has said, and Wajid's that way. I don't know why I'm pointing that way. Yeah, there we go. Wajid, who says the championship is over. We've both pretty much said McLaren are going to win the constructors, so we'll forget that. Pop your comments on this YouTube video below and let us know. Are you on my side or Wajid's side? Wajid's? That's God, you make that hard to say. Team Wajid. Wajid's decision of Max Verstappen has this won. Now, remember, I'm not saying Max won't win it. I'm just saying there's a title challenge. Like an asterisk there, just to cover my back.
Ourselves, we will be back either Wednesday or Thursday for the Italian Grand Prix
preview. We've got a preview of Monza today, which we may then know that Kimi Antonelli is signed. We will also probably know whether Haas have made it across. The few borders have got to make it across to make it to Monza. Money down that they don't.
And we may also know something.
Well, it'd be about time that we actually know something. But yeah.
Also, trailer thoughts probably went.
We will be going through the changes that Monza have made to the circuit. They have made a few changes. The layout is still the same. It's just a few changes which may make a bit of difference to racing that's going on. But Wajid, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me as always.
If I press these buttons, then we can. There you go. If you want to follow Wajid on social media, it's Burnt Out Travels on Instagram. And obviously, all mine are there.
But yeah, as I said, we'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, give or take. We will discuss for the preview, and we'll definitely be back next Monday for the Italian review show.
Yeah, it'll possibly be an evening thing for the preview. I'm not 100% sure yet, so we'll see anyway. But for now, thank you everybody for being here. We've had some mega numbers I've seen popping up in the corner for us, so that is very good. Please hit the subscribe button or the follow button or whatever on your choice of platform, and hopefully one day we may actually get this on to a podcasting platform instead of just sitting here on YouTube. But one step at a time, everybody.
We're consistent this year. Maybe next year's plans.
If you would like to come on the show and give us a bit of a helping hand with your opinions, then let us know privately and we can see what we can arrange. Also, remember this weekend we may be having a bit of an F3 preview because it's their final round at Monza, and that is a championship that's more open than... Yeah, I'm not sure what's more open than that. Anyway, thank you.
You can't say on this platform.
Yeah, probably can't say on this platform. But for now, that's been Wajid, that side, and I've been Motorsport Magpie, David, and I will see you very, very shortly for the Italian preview.